I always say this. It is all about being in the right place at right time. Indonesia is the place, and with this merger, 4th January 2022, we said that our purpose is to not only connect, but to empower every Indonesian. And we want to stay true to our purpose. Within 365 days, we released our first report, and today we had our first Empowering Indonesia Forum. We want to do it with the spirit of Gotong Royong. That is why we brought our best partner, not only from Indonesia, from across the world, because Indonesia deserves the best. And my takeaway is, yes, empowering Indonesia, but Indonesia for the world. Indonesia for the world is my biggest takeaway from today's panel discussion.
The event was an extremely inspiring event. I mean, there's the leadership that comes from Pak Vikram in terms of enabling this digital economy for Indonesia. It's visionaries like that completely change what the goal of the economy of the industry is going forward. Look, it's very easy in terms of what Indonesia is. It's got a large population, lots of young talent in the country. It's got the potential to be, like I said, like no other country. And I think an event like this really symbolizes the vision that Pak Vikram wants to go. And he's doing this with a lot of partners like us. The 150 hands that Pak Vikram spoke about, I mean, everybody is there together with him to make Pak Vikram's vision come to life.
This event, Empowering Indonesia Forum, itu seperti membuka mata lebih jelas lagi tentang bagaimana cara kita untuk bisa gotong royong, berkolaborasi, dan mewujudkan visi kita bersama. Saya rasa hari ini adalah hari yang sangat penting untuk kita semua, mendengarkan begitu banyak the best and the brightest in the industry, menuangkan apa yang mereka harapkan, inginkan, dan yakini bisa dideliver secara bersama-sama. Jadi saya harapkan semua yang menyaksikan mungkin materi kita hari ini bisa mendapatkan manfaatnya dan juga menerapkan dalam keseharian kita bersama. Terima kasih.
Bapak Vikram Sinha, the time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Semangat pagi! This is the spirit of Indonesia. A very warm welcome to all our distinguished and a very, very close strategic partner. I call it a family. I don't even call it partner. I'm taking it to a level because I feel it. Let me tell you something which I've been talking about a lot, but today I think it is a very special day. I wanted to share it with all of you when we are all together in one room. 4th January 2022, Indosat Ooredoo became Indosat Ooredoo Hutchison. We said few things. Number one, we said this merger will be very good for all key stakeholders. It will be good for employees, it will be extremely good for our customer, it will be good for our partner. But the most important thing which we said, that this merger will be very good for Indonesia. We have been in this journey for now 16 months. When we started this journey, we had a lot of doubters, and I give it to them because historically, mergers, especially in the telecom space, have not delivered the full potentials. So with this background, rating agencies like Fitch, immediately after merger, they put us on a negative watch list. February, they released their new report just 365 days after merger. They put it back on AA+. I think that is not the important point. Let me come back to what we said, that this merger is very good for Indonesia. We all know the importance of telecom sector, and I keep saying that especially COVID has been a silver lining for this sector. The whole industry for last 5 years was stagnant or growing at 1%, not even 2%. Immediately after merger, 15, 16 months, industry is growing 6-7%. And why I'm saying it is good for Indonesia, we all know if Indonesia vision of being the digital powerhouse of not only of Southeast Asia, it has the potential to be among the top 5 in the world. This sector is an enabler. So it has a very important role to play. With this background, Indosat Uridu Hutchison, I call it Indosat. We were born, and I have my top 100 leaders here. One thing, the purpose of not only connecting, the purpose of empowering every Indonesian kept us going. It is not an easy journey, getting different culture together. People call me, how do you work with Hong Kong and Doha? I said, this is the Indonesia culture. It is not about what it is. It is about Indosat and Indonesia. We have been given a clear opportunity to create a culture what we want to be known for. With all these background, the purpose of empowering Indonesia, and we want to stay true to that. Within 365 days of merger, we released our first report on empowering Indonesia. I keep talking about it a lot. I think I have given soft copy and hard copy to many of you who are in this room. I'm sure some of you would have read it. I always say that it is all about being in the right place at right time. And it is all about Indonesia. This merger was successful because of all the policy, the omnibus law, how things are getting forward-looking, infra sharing, everything, And that is all coming together, and what you see today is the result of it. When I talk about being in the right place at right time, let me give you few facts. If some of you would have read that report which we released, we all keep talking about SMEs. In Indonesia, there are 64 million SMEs. Only 30% is digital enabled as of today. This number by 2027 will become 64%. And we all have a role to play there. Can one person do it together, one company do it alone? But no. We have a role of making sure that this 30% of 64 million goes to 64 and how we can walk that journey. Number 2, only in rural Indonesia, there are 21 million new first-time internet users who will be coming between now and 2027. It's like a new Australia getting born in rural Indonesia. That is the size of the opportunity. Tell me how many places in the world has such opportunity. And we all have a role to play together on making sure that we not only connect them, we get them on board. They need lending, they need to come into the digital economy. We can't leave them, it is not about only working in Jakarta and Surabaya and Samarang. With all these things, by 2036, Indonesia will be among the high-income nations. I can keep talking about the facts. Today is the first Empowering Indonesia Forum. And again, I really want to sincerely thank all of you. There are so important people who have come from all over the world with one single connect, that we are all here for our purpose of empowering Indonesia. When it comes to talking about empowering Indonesia, it is so close to my heart. Not only work, I keep talking about it at home also, with my children, with my wife. Let me share with you a story. Last month, my father-in-law was here. He had come to meet us. And I again started talking at home in the living room about Empowering Indonesia. This book is on my table in my house, in my car, in my office room. And then, my father-in-law is a palmist. So I showed my hand and I told him that, what do you think? By when Indonesia will become the high-income nation? He said, looking at my hand, he said, Vikram, you are showing me a wrong set of hand. This is in the hand of 150 people who will be on your head office, 4th floor on 30th. It is in their hand who will make this vision true. And I really want to share this with you. Let's create this history together. And I personally, on behalf of the entire Indosat Ooredoo Hutchison management team, want to welcome you to walk this journey, and let's create this history together.
And ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know, Indonesia is the 4th most populous country in the world. We're the 3rd largest democracy in the world, as well as the largest island nation in the world, and also the largest economy in Southeast Asia. And as Bapak Vikram Sinha, as well as everyone, all the panelists have stated, is the importance of teamwork, or the signature Indonesian Gotong Royong attitude is what we need to further propel Indonesia to take on the global stage in terms and with regard to a digital economy. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us start. So this is it. Invite our panelists, Bapak Noshir Kaka, the global leader of McKinsey's Tech, Media and Telecom practice. Bapak Jerry Ng, the President Commissioner of Bank Jago. Bapak Patrick Waloyo, the co-founder and co-managing partner of North Star Group. And our moderator, our one and only and our beloved, Bapak Vikram Sinha. Let us give them a big round of applause. Bapak Vikram Sinha, you sure are a very busy man today, and the time and floor is yours.
Are you all excited? Let me again be honest, digitally with all of you. This is my first time being a moderator, and I am nervous. With this in background, friends, I feel like I'm a coach of a star football team who has Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, all in your team. And they are ready to help me win this ambition of empowering Indonesia. So let's start with a big, big round of applause to our...
So, Vikram, as you know, only Qatar can afford to pay all those players in one team.
Ahmed, please take note. I have Jerry with me. Whenever I meet him, I feel that I'm meeting somebody who is the father founding of this modern banking. What he has done in Jago in such a short time is incredible. Then I have Patrick. I've been in this country for 4.5 years. I got to meet Patrick around close to 2 years back. Every time I meet him, his passion and commitment on things like Vikram, always do things around performance. And then his passion around, we all spoke about startup. He's the man who has been behind GoTo, Gojek, and most recently, you would have heard unicorns like e-fishery and many more. Some of those things you have heard. But what I want to really call out is his passion and commitment towards Indonesia and empowering Indonesia. We are very happy to have him. And lastly, Noshir Kaka. First time, Noshir, I was with him in Barcelona. I met him, I think Kaushik told me that, you will be having a chat with Bob and Nasir. Bob is their global CEO. I took something, but whenever I put his name, people tell me, we go just take appointment with Noshir to have breakfast to get his views. And Noshir, by the way, these are global CEOs of scale, and that is the kind of stature. So with this on background, let me start, and maybe Jerry, I'll start with you. This whole Gotong Royong, how do you see this getting into corporate culture? How do you see we can use this spirit and help unlock the full potential of Indonesia?
If Vikram say, as moderator, he's nervous. After all the introductions, I think it is the panelists who are nervous, I think now. So he's actually very good. I think Vikram, I like to start by saying that I think it's brilliant, okay, for you to have chosen the word of Gotong Royong to describe strategic partnership. Because typically, in this culture, Gotong Royong is always referred to communal, community, family, and so forth. So there's a lot of, the feeling part of it rather than just, the logic. And I think that, I really feel that it's brilliant for you to sort of connect, okay, empowering Indonesia, preparing Indonesia, to reach the full potentials of, the largest countries, one of the largest economies in the world, and so forth. I thought that's actually brilliant because you are actually now combining the logic, with the heart, I think. So I think that's probably my first comment. Secondly, your questions about, how do we embed the spirit of Gotong Royong in a corporate culture? Now, what are the often overused word these days is ecosystems. But if we really unpack ecosystem, I think it's really all about working together, collaborating together, and really to the point that it's not just, of course, it's got to be win-win. But I think this is sort of, without that collaborations, without that strategic partnership, I think not only we may not be able to realize that full potential of Indonesia, but also at the corporate level. Now, I can give you an example. Jago is still a very small bank as of today. We started about 2 years ago. And today, we have about 8 million users, which is far, far less than his 100 million, okay? But I think that we were able to achieve it because of the 40 plus partners, including with Patrick's Goto and so forth. So to me, that is one example. I always feel that which is why I said when I received when you told me about Gotong Royong, I said that's actually brilliant because it is very refreshing and forward-looking for our corporations to use Gotong Royong to describe the kind of strategic partnership that you want.
Patrick, what does Gotong Royong really means to you?
So in the Indonesian context, you would go into a village and the community decide to build a road. And what Gotong Royong implies is that everybody roll their sleeve and they just work to make this happen, right? Nobody is asking what their pay is, how they're going to get rewarded. They just focus on getting things done. And I think that's the first part of Gotong Royong, is just that we each have to take whatever it takes to make things happen, right? But there is a new element to that in the modern society, which is accountability and high performance. I mean, it's not enough for you to just make a road. It has to be a road that will last and that can accommodate heavy vehicles to pass if you want to have like to make the best use of it, right, and have the biggest impact. And in just to put it into context of what we do, we are doing, as you mentioned, we are private equity and we have venture capital firm. We are today, I would say that combined we are the biggest in Indonesia, but our experience is that even the most successful companies in our portfolio, they cannot do things on their own. They always need partners, and partners that they can trust, partners that can address the areas that it's of this company is weak at, right? And I mean, I'm proud that I'm associated with Indosat and with Bang Jago, with Advance Group, with many, with Goto, with many companies. But what I can say is that if we want to achieve this objective of empowering Indonesia, especially the medium, small, micro enterprises, there's no way that we can do it on our own, right? We all have to work together. Not only companies in Indonesia, but we also have to work with the best companies in the global scale to bring their expertise, their scale, and also the speed of execution to what we do here.
Great. So Naushir, now I don't have to explain you what Gotong Royong is. You know, I was thinking I have to tell Naushir with his global exposure. I was asking Naushir, so which is your base location? He said in last 1 month, 1 week in US, 1 week in Europe, and 3 days. With all these learning from around the world, what Patrick said, not only in Indonesia, how do we bring global expertise? How do you think that this whole spirit of Gotong Royong can be put into work in the corporate culture? And how do we use this to unlock the full potential of Indonesia?
Thank you, Vikram. Firstly, I would just say, I'll narrate 2 really personal stories on this. You know, 25 years ago, and Karan will remember it, CP will remember, I think Sanjay, you were there also. We stood before the Prime Minister of India and we said that the small tech services business, which was at that time $2.5 billion all of India put together, has the potential to be 50 billion in 10 years' time. I'm very glad I didn't have a risk department that's of the size I have today in McKinsey, because they wouldn't have allowed me to say it, right? But we said it. And India reached that goal in 10 years and 2 quarters. And that is the first starting of Gotong Royong to me. It is the power of a dream. It is the power of a vision out there. And it's credit to you and the entire team here to have dreamt that, because all of this journey starts with that audacious, impossible dream. The second story I want to relate is what Ritesh said earlier. It's a more personal story. I have a maid in my house who's very elderly now. She's been with me for 25 years. So she still comes in. She more or less just has tea and lunch and goes home, but we keep her. About 4 years ago, she came to me and she said, you know, can you help my grandson? He needs a job. I said, sure, what does he do? So I don't know what she was speaking to me in Hindi. Mujhe pata nahi. So she said, I don't know what he does, but it's something called SAP. Right? That is the power of what this can do to this country. And Vikram, please go back to your father-in-law and say, this group of 150 will not stop working till that dream is achieved.
Great. You know, sitting here, I'm getting goosebumps. So let me build on this. It's you know, you can see the passion, what Patrick said and what Nasir is building on. Let me come back to Jerry. I think you said it, Jerry. One good example of Gotong Royong in action could be to create ecosystem that help the digital economy. Correct? This word has been getting used. My question to you is, we have leapfrogged from a credit card to wallet and debit card. Yet there is a lot of unbanked population in Indonesia. We know you are super passionate about financial inclusion. Can you lay out your vision for the next 100 million?
That's a very tough question. Vikram, I probably don't have the knowledge nor wisdom, honestly, to eloquently share the visions for the next 100 millions. Okay, but what I can share with you is that and by the way, for those of you who have come across the CK Prahalat through the books or in persons, I think I was very inspired, when I first read the article which he published October of 2002, okay, at the Harvard Business Review, where he talked about how do you serve the world's poor profitably, okay, and I'll try to link it to that 100 million. Now, let me take a step back and go back again to, I think, to all the things that we have talked about Indonesia potentially to become one of the largest economies in the world. Based on my back of the envelope calculations, with a 5% GDP growth per annum by 2030, will probably be 2 trillion. If you divide back again the number of population, all these numbers, okay. But I think what we have to take note of is that size of economies, okay, unfortunately are not equally distributed yet, okay, and therefore there are actually a lot of people, okay, which is part of the bottom, sort of 100, okay, and I think it is actually very, very important for us not to forget that from a do good point of view, I think we should do something with it, but at the same time, from a business point of view, there's also a lot of potential to do well. Also, if you know how to serve that, that bottom of the pyramid. Now, one of the pillars which I always believe to sort of help lift this 100 million or so out of sort of the lower, rank in terms of economic structure is through financial inclusion. Because I always believe that once somebody has a chance to be included in a formal financial sector, one then will be able to start build up, okay, the credibility, the record, and so forth. That will opens up a lot of sort of different venues, I think. Now, actually, Patrick and I, over the last now 15, 20 years now, okay, we have actually had the privilege to build a couple of interesting business. So one is actually we built a bank which serve pensioners. The other is we built a bank to serve what we call the productive poor. This is for those who are familiar with the Grameen models. Okay, it's similar to that, which is to serve 100% of the women, I think. So I think that just to go a bit deeper into this Sharia, this productive poor, we started the business about 10 years ago, and now I think that our Japanese friends, okay, are actually reaping a lot of the good work that I think a team put in, okay, because through that particular bank, the bank serve about 4.5 millions of SMEs, and those are 100% women, and I was just saying that I keep on telling the team when we were building the business, how do we touch the life of less than 10% of Indonesian, because typically a borrowers who are the women, okay, and typically this within a family there are actually 3 or 4 family members. So actually by touching, okay, by helping the helping that woman to start a business, you are indirectly touching the life of actually 4 members of the family. So if you do the 4 or 5 millions, for example, basically you are indirectly or directly touching already 20 millions of the Indonesian populations. And what we always believe is not just there is a say you give a man a fish, you feed them for a day, but you teach them how to fish. Basically, you feed them for life. So that's the philosophy, I think. But there's a lot of interesting, exciting business model out there. I don't know if I can again share about the 100 millions, how to touch the 100 millions visions. Okay, but that is some of the initiative, Vikram, that we've been doing to do that.
Jerry, you said that things like that is not easy, and I just want to build on that. How can telco work with banks on a vision like this?
I think there are many ways. I think Vikram. In fact, the first time I met with Vikram, it was riding in the same car with Patrick. Okay, we're riding in his car heading to a wedding, and Vikram was I think in the back of his mind, he was already thinking about fintech, okay? So he was actually asking me, I said, Jerry, we were on this composition. And I gave him a very candid and a very direct, I said, look, Vikram, for the last 10 years, I've tried to work with a number of telcos, and I have actually failed miserably. Okay. I think with McKinsey team also, we built a business called BTP and Wow, okay, whereby we're using a candy bar phone, okay, still the very old technology, to build a banking, platform at the back of that, that technology. But I must say, actually, since then, okay, I think Vikram probably say, let me be the first, okay, to say, hey, look, actually, you can actually work with telcos. Now, I think there's a lot of ways we can work with telcos. First of all, I think, just looking at your massive number of, users, I think, so if we can actually honestly put together, okay, your ecosystems, okay, whether it is your users, whether it's your SMEs, your enterprise, clients and so forth, with with the banking balance sheet, with the know-how. I think that Vikram, there's a lot of potential. Now, granted, globally, there are not that many yet. We probably have heard about successful financial services business built out of ecosystems like e-commerce, okay, and so forth. Telcos, I think there's only a few. So I actually would be I think so when we sat down and Vikram said let's do this together, I'm actually super excited. I'm also very honored, Vikram.
Friends, I think this was a very personal conversation where Patrick introduced me to Jerry, and the message from Jerry to me was, telco guys are so inward looking, don't waste time. I put my time where the value is. And this message is to more of Indosat leadership team. I think it is on to us on if we are committed, and what Patrick said, Gotong Royong is all about not looking back. Once you are in, you are all in. And then we bring things like, if you do something, how you do it properly. So this is very exciting. Patrick, first of all, let me congratulate you for e-fishery. I don't know how many of you know the latest unicorn in Indonesia. At a very early stage, e-fishery was supported by North Star Group. And Patrick, personally, I met the owner in Singapore. I was so impressed. This is a case of transforming a traditional industry. Indonesia is home to many natural resources driven by, fisheries, finance, etc. Many of these consumer-focused and need transforming in ecosystem partner. Patrick, how do you decide on these bets?
So for those who are not familiar with e-fishery, their business model is that they create this automatic fish feeder, which they sell on subscription basis to small fish farmers. So these are not fishermen, these are fish farmers inland. And from there, they build adjacent businesses by providing these farmers with feed, and then they buy the output, the fish, and then they distribute it to modern market and whatnot. So when we made the investment very early, it's pre-product, and the founder came from ITB, not your typical founder, didn't go to any Ivy League school or work in fancy companies like McKinsey and whatnot. He was fresh out of school, he was a fish farmer, and I knew that if I had the right mind, should not invest in a hardware company based in Indonesia. But I did anyway at that time, because he was just so impressive and he understood the pain point of these fish farmers really well. And I think I should say this, that we were lucky enough that the product worked. And because of the quality of this founder, he brought the company to much bigger scale. It is a profitable business. It has big revenue. And he is also so open-minded to learn from Indian model. There's a company called Captain Fresh, which is a successful exporter of seafood to around the world. They are starting a business line around that model and whatnot. So it's been, I would say that it's to your point, it's the right sector because there are actually 4 million fish farmers in Indonesia. So there are a lot of them. And they have a very simple pain, which is the majority of their loss is because of overfeeding that affects the water quality and so forth. So if you have this simple solution to solve that, you unlock a lot of value, right? And then you fix the supply chain, you add more value and so forth. So I think that's the success of the e-fishery. I would say that it's the right sector, but the most important thing is the founder, right? So I have another, most of you probably do not know this, but about a year ago, the president asked me to create a metaverse project for the new capital city. And I put together a team. There's one young guy whom I know, he was a trained architect, worked in NGO, Cornell grad, MIT trained architect, and I put them with a bunch of our friends from China and whatnot. Told them to, let's just help the president to create this, and we made an investment. We launched it. Very impressive product. Nobody was using it, and suddenly there is a company called Zenly, which is a very huge, very big map-based social app company owned by Snap. It was purchased by Snap a few years ago. They decided to close it down because Snap, by that time, this happened a few months ago, had that feature built in their product. So the team, in 2 weeks, created a version of Zenly, whereby the user of Zenly that was closed down can import all the data into our app and then have exactly the same experience, if not better, right? So for the first time, we actually have a company with a global product, and it is now the #1 social app on a download basis in Taiwan, in Russia, in Vietnam, in Japan. So it's a pretty interesting case study. What I wanted to say is that it's the agility and the hard work and the quality of the founder in this type of business. I think that is most important, and you want to associate yourselves with this type of people.
A big round of applause. Patrick, I'm at Indosat to Redo Hutchison. We are very honored that North Star Group is also our shareholder. I got the opportunity to work with some of these startups, how you bet on them, and listening to you on the founder. I think there's a corporate learning here for established company also like us. All the top 100 leaders. It's all about people. This is what he's trying to say. But my question to you is, Patrick, how do you handhold them, and how do you go about making them successful?
I don't have any magic formula, Vikram. What I can say is that being lucky is better than being smart in most cases. And I would also say this: despite all the successes that we talk about, some of these companies, there are also some failures, right? And from all the learning that we have, I always told our company that they should look at Vikram and what he has done at Indosat. Because it is one thing to start something new from scratch, and you can design exactly what you want to achieve, right? It is a much bigger challenge to change a 55-year-old organization to be nimble and to be adapting new ways of things. So what I have observed in the past 2 years since we worked together is that a lot of the work that you put is actually changing the culture and the mindset, which is extremely important, right? And I think you took took hard decisions very early on. You identified the problems. You took the hard decisions. It was not without controversies. Right? A lot of people came to me and complained about this and about that, but we plowed forward, and I think Indosat is just in the beginning of a big transformation. And Jerry gave me input that early indication is that at least the experience of working with Indosat is not like working with any other telco. That you have big ambition, you're fast, you're agile, and I had heard from Jerry directly that he's enjoyed working with the team tremendously, and hopefully success will follow that.
Actually, Vikram, I said a lot more than that. I said the teams. I think I really feel that the enthusiasm and the level of engagement is something that I have not found very, very often, and so particularly again, I think so yeah, I think so I think Patrick is absolutely correct.
We keep our head down, we are very blessed to have a shareholder like who can afford all the 3-star like Doha, which is Ooredoo Group. We have CK Hutchison, then we have North Star, combined with Paboy, and also we have government. We are very proud and honored to have government as part and very integral part of it. And Naushir, this has put us, when we dare to dream big, of really, having this 55-year-old legacy. People expect from us that we do tangible action in terms of empowering Indonesia. You would have done hundreds of partnerships across the world. It will be great to get your insights. How do you see what we can do to ensure to learn from the world? Patrick also said it is not only in Indonesia. We need to get the best from the world. We have partners from Google, Cisco. It will be great to get your insight, Naushir.
So, firstly, I think Patrick is absolutely right. This is not easy, right? And if any of us could predict exactly the shape and form these ecosystems will take or partnerships will take, I think we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be doing that, right? I think just 2 or 3 thoughts. Vikram, you said that when you started this journey with Indosat, Ooredoo, Hutchison, right? People didn't bet on the odds of the merger, right? You're absolutely right. 2/3 or more of mergers fail. We know that. Well, actually, 90% of the world's ecosystems fail, right? So we are aspiring to be in the 10%. And now if you step back and you say, why do they fail? What is actually some of the critical reasons they fail? Many things. The first that comes to mind is it's not a big move. The ecosystem is an incremental move forward from wherever the historical positions of the partners were, right? So putting a digital front end on a legacy business, for example, that's not a ecosystem that creates things. The second thing we learned is talent. If you don't put the right talent, it won't happen. And the third, you're absolutely right, is it needs to be global from day one or as close to day one as possible. And there I'll give you a few thoughts of what we see from models around the world. And I think, we have Karan in the room, we have others, Cisco and others, who've done an amazing job on actually building these ecosystems of partnerships. The first thing I think is you really have to be world-class or aspire to be world-class from day one, right? I see too many of these institutions which say, we'll do that when we are bigger. Right? Yes, there's always a pressure from here and now, but if you do not have that vision of being world-class or being as global as you can or being best in whatever you said, right, with Taiwan, Russia, Japan, I don't know how you string the 3 of those together on a social media platform. I think only Patrick can do that. But that's the first thing, which is have that global aspiration from day one. Second is, I think CP was absolutely right. It's not just empowering Indonesia. It is Indonesia for the world. And if you look at what this country can actually provide the world in agriculture and fisheries and lots of other areas, tourism, right? I think you have the opportunity to set the standard for the world. And you should take that opportunity. I know today it seems very daunting, right? But 20 years back in India, we couldn't get a T1 line. In fact, the story that most people don't know, if you go back to the official government statistics on software exports, from India in 1994 or 5, they showed a decline. And when we went through the numbers, we were saying, like, that's not true. It never happened. But you know why? Because exports from India was measured in the number of floppy disks that were physically sent overseas. And in 1995, T1 lines came in, right? The government didn't have a way to measure it even, right? So setting the ambition of being global from day one, leveraging the ecosystem of partnerships that are truly global, being aspirational in that, and actually drawing from the roots of your talent, of your domains, of the capabilities that you have. I absolutely don't think that the killer apps for the developing world has actually been built out. That's Indonesia, India, and all of the other countries' chances.
Friends, I know I have a very star-studded panel. If anyone want to ask anything, it's your opportunity. I have many questions and I have limited time, but just put your hand up if anybody want to ask Nasser, Patrick or Jerry any question. Don't hesitate. So more to you, Patrick and Jerry, since we have all these global tech leaders in this room and we have all agreed that it is this 150 hand, what would you like to see all of us as partner, whether it is TechM, Cisco, Google, do more? Where should we be focusing more to help empowering Indonesia?
I'm going to say something that is probably a little bit controversial. Somebody asked me, what is the biggest trend that you see in Indonesia in investment, especially in the early stage? And I have my friend Daniel from Huawei here. So I can share you that the biggest and most exciting things is that we see a slew of Chinese entrepreneurs coming into Indonesia, starting all type of businesses, and the speed and the scale they build these businesses are scary, right? I mean, Oppo, 60 million active users, and from that they built these cosmetic companies. In the first year they sold $100 million of goods. Now they are second year they're targeting $200 million. And the list goes on and on and on. And with that, there are platforms that come like TikTok, and the power of the power of that machine is incredible, right? And I'm sitting here, I was wondering whether we are actually at a moment like what Huawei did in telecom network back in the year 2000, where all these Chinese companies, they are just so good, and their unit economic is so efficient, right? That I think our traditional partners, not to name names, we just have to wake up to this reality. And you need to help us not only to, focus on what we have been focusing, but to face the reality that we have to cooperate, and we also have to compete with some of these Chinese technology players that are moving extremely fast. And if our conversations are still based on things that are pie in the sky and theoretical values in 5 years down the road, and the costs are just so prohibitively expensive for us, we can't do that, right? The world has changed. That is, again, my apology if this sounds controversial, but sitting where I am today, this is like what we are facing every day.
No, this is very powerful. Thanks, Patrick, and that is why a candid conversation is important. Anything you want to add, Jerry?
If Vikram, since you are referring to this, all these global tech leaders, I would say one thing that would be helpful. I think this is in fact a friend of mine when she was first.
Create solutions out of this and reach the masses and give them that digital empowerment, because that in the end has a phenomenal case for the country. Because Cisco does, we call it VNI reporting. Every year we predict where different countries are going from an internet perspective. And we believe the telcos and the digital businesses will contribute almost 30% to the economy of this country in the next 10 years. So technology is the foundation of that platform, I would say.
Karan,
So if you look at the history of anything that has happened in the world, and I'll take tech for example, there have been 4 or 5 big moments in tech. The mainframe era, the client server era, the Y2K era, the mobility era, and now the cloud era, and then finally emerging into the AI era. 5 or 6 defining moments in the tech landscape. And each moment has given birth to new players. The older ones, some have reinvented, but at every moment, there have been new players that have come in. And I say the same thing today here. There is something happening in the world today, which is a great opportunity for countries like Indonesia. Why Indonesia? A thriving population, a young population, a growing economy, stable. There are many of these nuances that go in the favor of this economy. And if you look at what's happening in the world today, there is a massive proliferation of AI technologies. Now you can question and say, hey, AI is great, but Indonesia doesn't have great foundational IT skills. Actually, I think that's an advantage, and pardon me, CP, for saying this. Countries like India, when they reinvented during the Y2K era and created an IT landscape, today they have to reinvent millions of people, and reinvention is not easy. Here is an opportunity to literally leapfrog an era and create a massive economy around the new tech in this country, which will mean the consumption economy, which means government will have to step in and create massive consumption of these technologies, because when governments consume, an ecosystem thrives. And when ecosystem thrives, you get gravity from people coming in. So I feel there is a massive opportunity for this country to actually now do what many countries have done during these phases of evolution. And this is the moment now, I believe.
I just want to add one more point. And I agree with Karan that leapfrogging is easier than stepping back and re-coaching yourself. I mean, we saw Tiger Woods is still coaching. So I can only say from my perspective that, Karan spoke about the various phases of the change in the technology landscape and how companies have benefited or countries have benefited. All I want to re-emphasize is that Google, X number of years ago, was not even there. Today, with their generative AI, they are looking at reinventing themselves. Cisco, purely a hardware company, today I think they have reinvented themselves as a software company. So the point again I'm trying to make out here is Indonesia has that opportunity to not only reinvent but reposition themselves. And take into account is a strength called 17,000 villages. But then you will be serving the farmer in Ohio. Then you would be serving a remote land in Australia. And the second part out here is, I personally believe most countries, including starting from California, when the entrepreneurship started being respected, entrepreneurs started becoming heroes, I believe that's a real catalyst. And I'm glad that CNBC, one of the interviews that I saw, it talks about 23 unicorns in Indonesia. Maybe there are more. But I think the 150 of us, if we can work with the local entrepreneurs and create 100 entrepreneurs which are potential going to become unicorns, I think that will really change the landscape completely.
there are some very interesting themes here. And actually, I know Jerry and Patrick are sitting in the audience. They understand a lot about entrepreneurship in Indonesia. And we're going to have them on stage in a bit of time. But let me pick up on what you said. I mean, it's very easy to get excited about entrepreneurship, lots of people, remote villages, etc., etc. Yet the reality is that, depending on how you count it, between a third and two-thirds of people in the country are unbanked. Right? Yes, you know, we can look at the statistics. Internet penetration is very high. Mobile penetration is high. but there are people that are at subsistence level. If empowering Indonesia is going to mean anything real, how can we carry everybody along? What have you seen in other countries? How do we really empower the bottom of the pyramid? Any thoughts?
I can take a stab at this. I think these things have been done. It's a question of very strong intent. I just take the example of my original home country, India, where the unbanked problem has been solved through technology and mobility, where the unified identity problem has been solved. Digital payments have been solved. This is now, in literally 2 years, the country has leaped from nothing to 50 billion transactions annually on. So I think on scale, these problems have been solved with the use of technology. So this is absolutely not at all new, and this can be done in this country as well, as my view.
Look, my view is there are 4 or 5 things that are really important to get it all together. I mean, first, of course, is that we are leapfrogging technology. I think that was said before. So we have an advantage here because we don't have legacy to deal with, right? So that's number one. Second is financial inclusion. Third is digital literacy. Fourth is creating an ecosystem of what I think CP was alluding to, of those entrepreneurs or startups, because that will fuel the economy. And last, if we truly have to go digitize Indonesia, let's go look at that 64 million micro SMEs. And I think I'm making an offer here to the board of IOH. Cisco will be all in to go make that happen, together with partners sitting on the stage. Because when you do that, you are truly bringing digitization to the masses.
Can I just add one more flavor? I think in my view, while when you create digital economies, for an example, the unicorns are absolutely important. But in many ways, they fend for themselves. The real issue sits when you try to democratize these things. I remember we took on a goal about 6 years ago when President Jokowi visited our headquarters, and he asked us to support the country in terms of real core programming skills, not just basic digital skills. Can you support Indonesians with deep programming skills? At that time, we took a goal, and I'm extremely excited that now, as we sit 7 years later, we now trained about 1.1 million Indonesians on deep programming skills. That's 10x the goal we originally took. Then we flipped and said, how do we support the MSMEs? Since today is a lot of MSME conversations. We've supported trained actually about 2 million MSMEs in this country. So democratization is super important because that causes sustainable growth in a country. And by the way, everyone loves the unicorns, everyone loves the startups. That's great. But when you democratize, that's when fundamentally a shift happens in the country. In that sense.
I can only add from my perspective is that when I use the word startup, to me, SME or MSME is a startup. It's an entrepreneur which is trying to solve a problem, whether it is tourism related or making sure that the handicraft that they make in their villages, they get into the marketplace. I mean, there is a whole ecosystem. The more we are able to bring it in the center, I mean, whether you are doing a food in one location, and through some of these logistics or, warehouse, whatever that, what is it called? Gojek or, Gojek or whatever.
There are people here that know a little bit about
yeah.
Gojek, yes.
I mean, I don't know. The point I'm trying to make out here is that ecosystem powered by technology, powered by a technology platform. And I am a huge believer that if it was not Cisco providing us the connected solutions, if it was not Google continuously inventing, whether it is a balloon to solve the last mile problem, or whether it is those autonomous cars, or whether it is the current generative AI tools that they have. I mean, ultimately, if we use the technology and if we are able to put together the producer and the consumer, I think we have solved a lot many problems.
Thank you. Friends, I realize I'm asking all the questions here. If anybody from the floor would like to ask, I'd be very happy to take those questions. Just a quick check. Anybody wants to put up your hand? Actually, even as we continue, please feel free to just put up your hand. If I spot your hand, I'm just going to call you out. Okay? So please feel free to ask. So coming back to some of these themes, we are touching a lot on technology. We're talking about MSMEs. What's the role of the private sector versus the public sector? What should companies like yours or Indosat do?
No, I think Vikram said it in the beginning. It's not that one player will solve it. It has to be public and private partnerships. All players in the market have to come together to solve. For digitizing Indonesia, it's a mammoth task. So partnerships, everybody have a role to play in it. But at the end of the day, we all have to play a long-term game because when you look at Indonesia, take at least 10 to 20-year perspective because that will guide your thinking in terms of what you need to do. And I think if one country have to bet in Southeast Asia, that will be Indonesia, given its size, scale, its the ethos. This is the country where social media platforms are really at the top of the chart. That means behavior is there. Now, if the consumer is sitting on internet for 8 hours, you can put a lot of propositions in front of him. So I think, to be honest, everybody has to play a role. And we have to all think a bit long-term in this pursuit of digitizing Indonesia. And everybody will be a winner, I promise.
So I want to just take a quick stab. Now, world over, if you start looking at the primary citizen care, whether it is smart cities, whether it is citizen services, whether it is healthcare, or whether it is education, or whether it is, as I said, creating marketplaces. I think it cannot happen without private sector like IOH today taking a lead and bringing 150 people together. It cannot happen with government not creating the right framework or the right ambition. Or number three, it cannot happen unless some of us, whether I'm a system integrator or he is a technology player, all of us working together, and somebody has to take the lead. So let's give a compliment to it, IOH, for taking the lead.
So I noticed that it's close to time up. Guys, anybody from the floor who wants to ask anything? Just trying to make out. In the absence of that, I have one final question for each of you. Okay? And think about this. A piece of advice for Vikram.
Tell me the name of your tailor. You're looking very good.
Okay, that may not be what you expected. So CP, think again.
Unexpected.
I would just say one thing, and that's of course from Vikram's lens, but that's also from the Indonesia lens. Given the scale of this country, all I would say, Vikram, whatever you do, think scale. Companies and countries have failed when they've tried to make technology as the core versus the outcome as the core. Think scale, avoid pilots. There are countries and companies that have been the graveyard of pilots. So I would say think scale in whatever you do, because the cost of failing is way less than the benefits that you get if something succeeds. So that would be my one advice.
That's inspiring.
Very well said.
Thank you. Sanjay.
No, for me, I think, Vikram, your energy is infectious. Whenever I come here and meet executives of or management team of IOH, you just believe. Honestly, you go with a feeling that this is the partner you want to work with. So my advice is go, go, go.
CP, any famous last words?
I don't think, all I can say is that I would still take talent as a core to any ambition. And if we invest in talent right from grassroots, I think we are doing not only empowering Indonesia, but I think Indonesia can empower the world.
Indonesia can empower the world. That's a great ending line. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. CP. Karan?
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the very exciting and interactive, informative session on Empowering Indonesia. And I'd like to sincerely thank our wonderful moderator for excellently moderating this very fun session. And thanks to our panelists, of whom also stated on how MSMEs have undoubtedly become the backbone and the heartbeat of Indonesia's economy and have really become the biggest levers to drive forward Indonesia's digital economy. So I'd like to thank them for emphasizing the importance of partnerships and co-creations to together notice on these new opportunities and open greater access for Indonesia. And ladies and gentlemen, just as our panelists have emphasized, is that really a drop, us alone is merely a drop, but when we work together, that's when we become an ocean. Truly, when we're alone, there's only so much that we can do, but together, we sure could do a lot. And that is really on the spirit of Gotong Royong, or the spirit of unity. And ladies and gentlemen, as the day is still young, once again, we'd like to ask you to please continue working together in the spirit of Gotong Royong, or the spirit of unity, as well as empower the people of Indonesia. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.